Welcome to the That Don't Fit podcast, a podcast where we're dedicated to talking about life and life's real issues that cross racial and generational lines. My name is Jared Torrance, and I'm here with my co-host, Andy Farmer. We're friends, we're pastors, we're wanting to help people talk and process life in a crazy world. Welcome to the conversation. Welcome to another episode of That Don't Fit. Today, we are continuing our series. Can we call it a series? We'll call it a series.
Yeah.
Of the most influential albums, and I will not rant as much as I did last week. Is it week by week? No. As much as I did last time. I will not rant as much.
It sound like you're not ranting. So this is, that's not relevant.
You will rant.
I will. It's inevitable. I'm just going to say this to cover a little bit of the ranting that is inevitable. And so we've got 3 albums each to go through.
Yeah.
And I listened to them deeply this time, and so I'm excited.
Excellent.
I'm more familiar with Andy's influences. And
now these are not albums that influenced the world.
Yeah. Which
they're
I
only
have to
albums.
address. I made sure to listen to Abbey Road, so all my musician friends can stop.
Welcome them back into the union.
Writing me hate mail.
Come back into the union now. You can join the rest of them. No, these are albums that influenced us. We're just doing it so you get to know us better through things we both love, which is music.
Yeah.
So,
Who's starting? Who you want to start?
I'll start. Yeah. So first, I'm doing mine chronologically, kind of painting the picture of my life. And so the first one is an album by a band called Creedance Clearwater Revival, called Cosmos Factory. Mm-hmm. And a little background on it. That's a band very prominent in the late 60s, early 70s. They put out 5 complete albums in 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
And they were all hits. They just, every 5 months, a total new album out. You're talking about now somebody
That's
drops
ridiculous.
a song, everybody's like, yeah, this is great. No, they were like dropping albums like out of the sky. And so this is the 3rd album of that bunch. And then they kind of broke up because I think they burned out. But the reason this is in here is, again, when I was a kid, when these songs were coming out, I would actually buy the 45s. And so I had all the 45s, the fantasy record 45s. And so when the albums were coming out, I was too young to buy albums. So this one I probably bought when I was 13, 14, something like that. Creedance Clearwater, at that point in my life, was the band I wanted to create. That's the sound. If I'm going to have a band, that's the sound I want. And you know what? That's never changed. To this day, if I could sound like Creedance Clearwater. And what's funny about them is that you listen to songs, and you can talk about songs. They are so simple.
Yeah.
They are basic songs. But you hear interviews with musicians talking about doing cover songs, and they don't like to do Creedance cover songs. They say, we can't produce. That was basically a garage band.
Yes, yeah.
In fact, the album cover is them in a garage. They're almost impossible to cover because something about, you can play the songs, but you can't cover the songs.
Gotcha.
And so it's fascinating because it's just the combination of what he produced and John Fogerty, who still functions. This is the only band on my list that I didn't see live.
Okay.
So I didn't see the Beatles. I saw Paul McCartney live.
Yes.
So this is a band that I've always wanted to see, never saw them. But yeah, that was just like hit after hit after hit.
Yes.
And I just love it. It's just 3 minutes of killer song.
Well, and what was funny, as I was listening to this, I was like, I recognized so many songs on there. Could not, if anyone asked me who Creedance Clearwater Revival was, I would say, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But listening to the songs, I was like, oh, I know that song. Oh, that's in like every Ford commercial. Or, oh my gosh, this is like, this song and that song and that song. So that was, and also just a quick comment on the sound you're wanting to produce. I was listening to this one day with my headphones. I unplugged my headphones because my children came downstairs. And Isaiah, like the old man he is, my son is 6 years old, he just goes, woof, that is loud, Daddy. It was like, essentially, he was like, what is all this ruckus, this rock and roll ruckus you are listening to? It was a beautiful moment.
Yeah. If you've never heard them, they're basically, they're a San Francisco band who played sort of swamp blues country kind of music in a San Francisco way. It's a great band. The thing I think that I love about him is it just is always stripped down.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. All these albums I have here have drummer connections for you.
Yes.
You know, this drummer is not very good. You know?
No, wait a second. What do you connect here? Connecting the
No. If you notice, there are songs where his tempo fluctuates on the album.
Okay.
And Fogerty himself said, he couldn't keep time.
Pretty important part of being a drummer.
Because they're all buddies. You know, they're all buddies, and
yeah.
they played in the band. They were all actually most of them were in the army, either went to Vietnam or in the army. So that's Creedance. They're very formative for me. I still want to play and sing like that.
Yes.
I never will, but I want to.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Am I up?
Yep, you're up.
What should I do? Should I do Knowing the Whale first?
Yeah.
This one should take the least amount of time.
Okay. Certainly coming from me.
Yes. Me and Andy dialogued a little bit about this one before. So Knowing the Whale, the album was The First Days of Spring.
Yeah.
When
did it come out?
I think it came out in 2009.
Okay.
I could have just made that up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when it came out, but it was a little while ago. And it's not the best album. I really do enjoy this band. So there was a point in my life where I had dreadlocks that flowed to my shoulders. You know, I wavered between angsty teenager and mopey hippie as well. And so this.
So you're 19 at the time when this is happening?
Something like
Start
that.
from your birthday and move forward.
Stop. Let me see when this album actually came out.
Yeah.
I think I listened to it my freshman year.
Okay.
Noah and the Whale, First Days of Spring. So this album came out. Yeah, 2009.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would have been 19. And it was I was in college and doing all this different. It was my freshman year, so I was out on my own and figuring out who I was and whatever relational thing that was happening there. I was probably like sad about that or whatever. And this song, it's a concept album.
Yeah.
It's pretty mopey, but it talks about it, like it paints a story of like, after winter, everything's dead and everything's sad. And then the first days of spring come. And it's just like, there's life and there's hope again. And this album was accompanied by a film that these guys directed, which technically speaking wasn't great. But in my hipster mind, I was like, dude, this is like artistic. And so I enjoyed like watching this and trying to like map up the storyline with what was going on. So it's about a breakup.
Of course it is.
Of course. It's a breakup that devastated him. And I'm sure like it was all his fault in regards to the breakup as well, but that's not what's painted in the story.
Yeah.
And there's even like a moment in the middle. There's like 3 instrumental tracks that are supposed to be like, his like, what? I'm going to get out there and I'm going to go again and it's going to be great. And I think it's called The Love of an Orchestra. And so this guy's like, I'm out there, I'm going to shoot my shot again. I'm going to do these things and I'm going to bounce back. And then he just plummets into like the worst despair ever. Yeah. But then after that, so the song it's like this story arc. And then after that is Blue Skies, which was the biggest song on this album, which I still to this day, I will listen to that song on the first day of spring. Blue Skies, and I'll play it like while I'm making coffee in the morning or something like that. It's just that is the best song on the album, Blue Skies, because it's like he's like, this is the last song I'll ever write about you. I'm moving on, and spring is coming, and it's like this hopeful, but it's still he kind of sings like this, and he doesn't really sing at all. But I loved it. It opened the door for storytelling albums for me.
Okay.
And really wanted me to not just write. It kind of led me to like, as I'm writing music, like bringing in personal experience into what I'm expressing. So it almost turned like more of my writing into a sort of like personal poetry, if that makes sense.
So I'm trying to picture you
good
moping
luck.
around.
Yes. As a
JT
college Division I athlete.
Moping mode.
Yes.
Walk me alongside you. What does that look like? Are you brooding?
Yeah.
Are you looking down? What do you like? What's your vibe? What's your mopey vibe?
My mopey vibe is I think a lot. My emotions go in extreme. So I was like super happy. And then like I would get like, but I'm also really hard on myself, especially in college. It was bad.
Yeah.
And, so I get all mopey and just think like, man, what am I doing in life? Like, what is my purpose? Will I ever find true love? Like, typical Division I college athlete mopiness, right?
Will I make first team?
Yeah.
All those major college problems.
And so yeah, that's what it would look like. And then the album ends with kind of like a reconciling of like, not even to each other, but just like, you know what? I need to stop being so mopey, and I'm going to keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
So that's that album for
I
me.
listened to all the albums, loved them all. This one, like I never got to spring, right? Like he got to spring, and I'm still thinking, you're singing like winter. You're singing like it's just like not going to ever happen. And if the best you can give me is I'm just going to move on, just stay in winter. Don't mess up my spring. That's my view of the song. You're messing up my spring with your Blue Sky song. So I got a Blue Sky song on another record that I'll point out that we'll talk about. So
great.
okay.
Oh,
So
gosh.
don't mean to diss. So I wasn't really a fan.
No, that's perfect.
Second album is the Who. Who's Next? I think it came out in like '72.
Yes.
Was a big Who fan. Saw them twice back in the '70s. Familiar with them. It's three guys playing and a singer. The album, you'll recognize songs off of that too.
Yes. My goodness.
And particularly
That
I think
opening
song, Bob
one.
O'Reilly. Yeah, that's on like. I mean, I looked at the number of places it's used.
Yes.
It's everywhere. It's like everywhere, and mostly because they use that line "Teenage Wasteland," so it works for anything where there's teenage angst. That's what they use.
I could have
or
used
zombie
that in
movies.
college.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it would have been perfect. It would have been perfect. But again, that album to me was moving me into my angry period. Now you might be saying, I don't see you as an angry guy, but I was angry. I didn't even be angry about.
Yeah.
But it was just cool.
There. Yes.
To be angry. And but it's a different kind of anger. Like your anger might be, and this is probably 17 years old or so when this album was really big for me. They're just really angry dudes. And that's the way they've always done their music. Yeah. And it's interesting, after I became a Christian and I was thinking about what could I still listen to, I couldn't listen to The Who. Not because the music was lewd or crude or anything else, but because the angry spirit
just came back at me.
And but great lines in those songs. Won't Be Fooled Again.
Yeah, he's done.
He's done. And Meet the New Boss, same as the old boss, man.
Which, by the way, with that song, so I recognized the riff in that song.
Yeah.
I thought that line was the chorus.
Okay, yeah.
And so as I'm listening to the song, I'm just like, dude, these dudes just write the same songs over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the "Here's the new boss." Oh, can we sing that? Is that copyright?
You're good. I don't think.
Okay. I don't think they'll recognize
the way it sounds. There's no algorithm's going to recognize that.
But then it came in like the last 30 seconds of the song. I was like,
It's the last line of the song.
There's the line. I've been waiting for it this whole time. So that was a fun little experience too.
Well, you also have to love the scream on that.
Yes. Yes. Now that was recognizable.
Yeah. You did
now
you
we're
did
gonna
that
get
well.
Yeah.
So
who we got to talk about the drummer though.
Yeah, the drummer.
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, the drummer. If you pay attention to the drums, they make no sense.
He's a madman.
It's a madman. Yeah, and you watch him play, and you don't know what he's thinking. Keith Moon, and he's usually always ranked kind of in the top 5 of all time of rock guitar drummers, but you can't figure. He always sort of ends up in the right place. But I'm not a drummer.
Yes.
But I don't think you can get there from where he gets there. It just seems like, okay, I don't know how you wound up with that cymbal crash from where you started. And you watch him play, that's exactly right.
Yes.
He had no rhyme or reason.
Did you say Keith Moon?
Keith Moon, yeah.
Who's Neil Peart?
Neil Peart is it's the Canadian band. Right.
Oh, there we go. There we go. I'm back. I'm
No,
back.
he's
I'm
a
back.
technical drummer.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
I
he's a
got it.
technical drummer.
I'm back.
But Keith Moon's not a technical drummer.
No.
In fact, the biggest thing, if you can, you look on
We
YouTube.
should cut that out. I'll lose all drumming cred.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I know we don't have to include this in there either, but there's they were on the Smothers Brothers, which is this very kind of odd show in the 60s.
Yeah.
And they play this song, and at the end of the song, that nobody knew. They filmed it live. Nobody knew that he packed his drums with explosives, and so you can watch it on YouTube. And so at the end of the song, he just hits it, and you know. And you can see it knocks the guitarist like out this way, and so it's and actually the guitarist had hearing problems from that point on.
I can imagine. Yeah, explosives
because he put too much in, and so anyway, that's the Who. That's kind of like
That's
it's
what they
maximum
do.
R&B they call themselves.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, but I listened to the album because it fed the anger in my heart.
Yes.
So
That's great. All right, am I up?
yep.
The Swell season. Oh, I'm gonna try and not freak out too much about this one. So, the band is called the Swell season. It is a couple that has musicians around them, but Glenn Hansard and Marketa Irglova. They are. He's Irish. He was a busker before he formed the Swell season. He was in this huge like Ireland's biggest band. One of them in a band called The Frames, and then they made a movie called Once that told their story. And the movie it's actually a good movie. Mm-hmm. It's not like the Noah and the Whale movie. Yeah. No hate to Noah and the Whale, but actually a little bit. That's okay. Mm-hmm. But the movie tells their story, and they actually fell in love while filming and doing all these things, and so they're a couple that produces this music. And Glenn Hansard, you can tell by listening to him, he was a huge fan of Van Morrison, and I hear when I listen to old stuff, I hear their influences inside of what Glenn Hansard does. Yeah. I think he's got a very unique timbre and unique voice. I love. He's one of the only artists I know who is so passionate and kind of screamy, singy live that actually comes through in the recordings as well. And this album, Strict Joy, was interesting because they broke up.
As a band, as a couple?
As a couple.
Okay.
And then recorded this album.
Yeah.
And we're writing songs together still. And so there's songs we're trying to figure out, what are they talking about? Is this a song about their breakup? Is this a song about their breakup? And are they still going to tour together and this kind of thing? But I like this man because they're pretty. They can do a lot of things with it. He has, because of his experience with the Frames, which is a kind of more rocky, louder band. Some of that influence is in this album as well. But when they formed the Swell season, it was more acoustic, kind of drawn back, and they really focused in to bring the dynamic changes with their vocals. And so Glenn Hansard is actually one of my biggest vocal inspirations. He talks about how you don't even find what your actual voice is until you're 35, 36, because other than that, you're just mimicking what you hear.
Yeah.
And so I've always, and he's it's an Irish musician.
Your potential's still out there, man.
But yeah, I might find my voice in about 6 years. We'll figure out what I actually sound like. But he's a great storyteller too. Yeah. And so in all of his live shows, he tells stories about the songs that he's written. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize this was an Irish tradition, but they just make up stories.
They're not necessarily true stories.
Yeah. And, but they're because Damien Rice, who's another big Irish musician, he does the same thing as well. He tells this ridiculous, long, hilarious story, and he's and then I wrote this song.
Yeah.
And so it made his concerts. I went and saw him live once in Chicago, but it makes his concerts fun and interesting. And he's just a warm, loving person, which makes you listen to the album in an interesting way, because it's he's very expressive, but he's honest, and their harmonies are perfect together. So even when they broke up, we were no, I hope you still make music together. And but yeah, so this was a formative album for me because it was the second or third album I've heard of the Swell season, and it really solidified them as to like, okay, this is going to be in a regular rotation for me, probably for the rest of my life. And I still listen to
From a
them.
mood standpoint, like when do you go to it? When do you hit it?
I go to them when I'm feeling nostalgic. Because this was one of the first bands I discovered like on my own.
Okay.
And
so
like,
let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Sort of breaking a band.
Yes.
So was that a big thing to you? I got to find a band nobody's listening to and make it my own, or how does that work?
No, so it kind of happens a lot. Like I love searching for new music.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like a hobby or a habit.
Yeah.
And my brother John also finds very obscure bands and things like that.
Yeah.
And so, he's always introducing me to music. And so when I find one that I'm just like, I got there first. Like
Yeah.
it's just like a fun little thing for me.
Yeah.
And
Which is interesting. I mean, again, places where our backgrounds are different.
yes.
I grew up when you couldn't do that.
Right, exactly.
Like,
yes.
right. The only way you discovered a band is to find them in a venue somewhere.
Right.
You just walk in and they're there, and you're not going to go. There was no way to do it. You imbibed what was given to you by the record companies.
Right.
There weren't independent producers. There weren't
Yep.
independent labels.
Yeah.
There were big labels, and they produced albums, and you
That's good.
did that. So it's interesting because the idea of sort of breaking a band or kind of
Yes.
being out there is like something that's foreign to me. I'm looking for. I've never approached music that way.
Yeah, that's
so-
fun. Yeah, so it was like a fun thing of just like, man, I really enjoy this music. And he had a deep catalog by the time I found them, because all of his Frame stuff that was in like the mid '90s. He was doing that, and so he's been doing music for a long time. And so yeah, there's songs on this album like called "I Have Loved You Wrong," and it's just like, are they talking about each other? Like, is that when this happened? And so I'll listen to that song when I am, or not a song. I'll listen to this album when I'm feeling nostalgic, because there are some just like happy, good songs on here as well. This album came out. Oh, this album also came out in 2009. And so this would be when I'm not feeling mopey.
Okay, so you listen to Noah and the Whale,
Yes.
and then exhaust the mopiness, and then you put
Yes.
this on to kind of get you
Yes,
going.
kind of
again?
get me going, because there's
There
a
you
whole
go.
gamut
Yeah.
of things as well. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I guess that's what that's.
What was
meant.
the album you listened to before you got to know? What got you down in the hole?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's probably somewhere on this list. At some point. But yeah, the Swell season, they're a great band. Glenn Hansard actually broke off and did some solo albums, and I just love, he's very genre bending. So like, you never really know what kind of album is going to come. But he, because there's one thing he did that I really love. He's like, he has this. Check the time. Yeah, he has this album where he was like, I just finally stopped trying to not sound normal.
Yeah.
Like there'd be so many times where I'm writing a song and then I just throw this funky fifth disdain chord just so I could be unique. And it's like, you know what? Sometimes you just need a simple song, and that
Creedance
speaks.
Clearwater, man.
Dude, and that's what he
Creedance
did. And
Clearwater.
it's just like, and he's hard to cover as well, because the timbre of his voice and the like, he's really able to like scream, sing, and make it sound nice. Like that song "When Your Mind's Made Up," which is a bonus track on this. When he does that live, I'm just like, dude, how can you still sing?
Wow.
Like, how does that not just wreck your vocal cords? But and he turns all red, and as he's screaming, it gets me all fired up.
That's
so
cool. Great.
it's great.
Excellent. So my third album is Allman Brothers Eat a Peach.
Yes. Yeah.
Allman Brothers, part of my Southern roots. They were formed in the South. Two brothers, Dwayne and Greg Allman, and musicians. Interesting about it, it's a double drummer band.
Okay. It's got a brother in it too.
Yeah. What do you mean?
I mean,
Yeah, Jimo. Yeah, I got you. I said, they had Dwayne and Greg, they're brothers. And you said he got a brother in it. Yeah, I mentioned him. Jimo.
yes.
Jimo, yeah. And,
Fantastic.
I'm tracking. So, but no, they were a band, produced a couple albums, got regional appreciation. Critics liked them. Blues. Basically, they wrote and covered blues songs. It was a blues band.
Yeah.
And the leader of the band, Dwayne Allman, was session guitarist in Muscle Shoals, and phenomenal guitarist. Mostly slide guitar, plays mostly slide guitar. But what happens is they broke big with a live album that they recorded at the Fillmore East in New York, called it Live Fillmore East. It's one of the sort of standard live albums. If you're going to listen to a recorded band, this is the album that most captures the band. So huge double album. So this was their follow-up. It's going to be a studio album. They were going to do a double studio album. So they go in and they cut 3 songs, the first 3 songs on the album, and then Dwayne dies in a motorcycle accident.
Oh,
right in the middle of the recording, the leader of the band, right?
Yeah.
And so they're devastated. These guys are devastated. What do we do? They took a little bit of a break, and they said, we got to go finish the album.
Wow.
And so they went back and they cut the remaining studio songs, turned it into sort of half of it is live album. They took other songs from the concerts, but the other songs they did. In fact, they rewrote one. The first song on there, Ain't Wasting Time No More. He rewrote the lyrics as a tribute to his brother.
Wow.
And so literally his brother dies in like October or early November, and they finish the album up in 2 months, right?
Yeah.
And so the album comes out, and what they did is they filled it out with some other live cuts. And this one, I told you don't even bother to listen to it. It was a 33-minute long song.
Yes.
They put in there as a tribute to him too.
Wow.
But some of the best live guitar work he did is on that album. A year later, they're in the middle of promoting it, and the bass player, motorcycle accident, almost exactly a year later, 3 blocks from where Dwayne died, Barry Oakley, the bass player, died. And it's incredible. The whole band just they survived. And actually, the biggest album they ever put out came out after that with the new lineup. But it's an album full of tragedy.
Gracious.
And you feel it. You feel these wonderful happinesses of certain songs and this sadness in other songs. There's a song in there, Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Which is probably the last song he ever played on. Played guitar on. It's a beautiful sort of country-ish kind of song. But growing up, the Allmans were like, this is our music. This is the heart of who we are. This is it was an integrated band, and that was cool. But they were very authentically Southern, and they were very blues oriented. So you felt deeply. And there's a whole. They were based in Macon, Georgia, which was about 60 miles south of Atlanta. At that time, and the whole Southern rock thing, the Leonard Skinner and all that stuff, came out of them. They sort of launched the whole deal. So they were like the patriarchal band of all these other bands.
Interesting.
So that was the world I was in. I mean, that was the dominant music of me in high school.
Yeah,
was those guys, and the Allmans were the pinnacle of that. I saw them, interestingly. It's the only time I ever fell asleep at a concert. Actually, I fell asleep twice, but. One was a very like 9-hour festival where I fell asleep. This was just one show, drum solo, long drum solo. I was out and woke up when they brought it back. And but I put it in there because it first of all, Dwayne is perhaps my favorite guitarist.
Yeah.
His career's brief, but his music, his playing was just unbelievable. And it just, when I listen to that, when I need to nostalgia, when I need to go back and rediscover my roots, I go to the Allman Brothers.
Wow.
They're my go-to. These guys, because they're not just churning out radio music.
Right.
They were doing blues that was getting played on the radio.
Yeah.
And so to me, that was it. So the brothers are a big influence on me.
That's great.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this in under 4 minutes.
Okay.
That's not true. But I'm going to try. So the last album for me is Sonshine.
That was a good album.
By Swoop. My goodness. So this album came out in 2018, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And this album was so helpful. So Swoop is one of my favorite CHH Christian hip hop artists.
Yeah.
He's from Akron, Ohio. Shout out to Ohio.
Yeah.
And he is one of the best lyricists I think in hip hop.
Yeah, I can tell that. Yeah.
He's so thoughtful and clever in the way his puns and different things, and his wordplay is ridiculous. His cadences and things, and he's a phenomenal producer. So he's a church musician,
Okay.
gospel pianist, and so which means the dude.
Yeah, you hear that in there.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
My goodness. And this album, it's coming after, he had a record label that kind of collapsed in on itself. There's a bunch of interviews out there about that process and different things. And then he kind of just went silent. So I think the record label collapsed in like 2011 or something like that. And there's just no more Swoop. Like this giant in Christian hip hop who everyone was like, dude, this guy is it. This is like, he's got his own record label. Like, let's get behind this guy. This is what's going on. And then he was just gone.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, he released a small like mixtape, Because You Asked. And so it was like 4 or 5 songs. Just like, it was kind of like just a breath of fresh air. Like, oh my gosh, Swoop is back. This is great. He drops a single a few years later called Lambo. Mm-hmm. And the only reason I'm talking about this is because this is like all leading up to like the redemptive narrative that is in the album Sonshine.
Yeah.
And so his single Lambo, the chorus is, I know money can't buy happiness, but I wouldn't mind crying in a Lambo. Yeah. And so he talks about just how low things got after the record label crashed. And, his mother was battling with cancer at the time. She actually just recently passed away a few months ago. And, but just how, like, he was eating at a food shelter and they gave him a gospel track with it. And he's like, man, they're giving me this gospel track to like witness to me, and I'm a gospel rapper. What has my life come to? So there's just a really low moment. And then, so this whole album just talks about, he said writing this album was like therapy.
Yeah.
And he talks through so many important themes. This is obviously post the 2016 election. And so he gets into a little bit of that. And also there's just some songs that are just like, let me just put some heavy weights on my back and do squats as I'm listening to it, like songs that just get you jacked up. Yeah. But he's also such a thoughtful writer. So this, like, there's a progression like Old Me where he's talking about like, because a lot of times what happens in the CHH world is that like, if you're not doing the CCM thing, Christian contemporary music, like then you're kind of out. It's like, if you get a little too black, then we're going to kind of cut you off. Like, we don't want you to talk about these topics. Like, just kind of like, just stay black enough that we can like be happy about it, but don't get into like the depths of it. Yeah. And so the song Old Me kind of talks about that, where he feels like, you know what, I'm getting back to the old me. And then he has a song, Thou Shalt Not Kill, which he addresses gang violence. He addresses police violence. And it's just like, dude, like this is a command.
That was a powerful song.
So, I mean, I wish we could play clips from it just to give little briefs of it. And then the song Black Boy, he wrote to his sons.
Oh, yeah, man.
Dude.
Kill me.
My goodness. I want to read through the lyrics, but we don't have time. I encourage you all to listen.
Listen to that song.
Listen to that song. The piano is beautiful. The words beautiful. The message is beautiful. Yeah. And
he carries it through.
Yeah. And he waits so long for the beat to drop. Like, it's just he's so patient with it. It's such a good payoff.
It's a really good payoff.
And then the last 3 songs, You Got Me, which features Taylor Gray, who was another one of my favorite hip hop artists. He's coming up later. Great lyricist. There's just talks about the security of God having us and God keeping us. And then Shining Down, which is one of Eleanor's favorite songs. Like, I love seeing her and Isaiah just jump around dancing and singing to that song. And that song helps in a lot of ways. Like, he just talks about all the little blessings that we have that we overlook, and just celebrating that God's got him. He's not in a place where he's getting Chance the Rapper on his songs. He's not in a place where Fred Hammond's coming in and doing things, but he's like, you know what? I have a van. I used to always need a ride somewhere. You know, he's like, I got a haircut. I got my wife next to me. And, you know, the lady at the wing shop gave me a few extra chicken wings today. And I'm feeling good. And so it's just like, sometimes I need that song to just remind me, like, you know what? Lift your chin and just give thanks to God for things that he's doing. And it's a wonderful album. It's helpful. I listen to it a lot. I listen to it when I'm having down days. I'm listening to it on Fridays when I'm just like, you know what? Let's just celebrate. I'm listening to it if it's one of those times where it's just a hard month being black, and I just need to hear someone talk about that. And he delivers on all those fronts. And so
one of the things I appreciate, I know we got to wrap up, and in listening to the hip hop and that you've been recommending and things like that, one of the things I've learned to appreciate is there's a what would be the word, a clarity about the artist and the narrative toward you. You know, now I don't know how it works with other, with non-Christian hip hop, and whether there's just there's characters created and I just work out that character. But what I've heard so far, one of the things I appreciate about it, because he's, this is coming through to me. This is coming through. Your experience is coming through to me. You're not trying to say it in oblique ways. You're not trying to hint around.
No.
You're using words both creatively and directly.
Yes. Yep.
And so it doesn't, I'm not being preached to. Yeah. But I feel like, okay, there's nothing between me and you.
Yes, it's a conversation.
It's a conversation. Yeah, that's exactly great way to say it. I feel like we're in a conversation. I'm not trying to figure out what you really mean.
Yep.
You may have double meanings, but you're clear. I have double meanings here.
Yes.
And it's very refreshing because you listen to a lot of music these days and you think, I don't know exactly what you're singing about. Maybe nothing at all. But that's one of the things I really appreciated about that album in particular. Is I felt like, okay, he's just, let me drop you into my life, my world, where I'm going, where I've come from. Boom. Not dramatizing it.
Yeah.
Just slice of life.
Yeah.
And really well done.
That's good.
So that is it. We will have probably one more session where we'll finish up, and then we'll find some other way to talk about ourselves. So with that in mind, see you later.
Perfect.